Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the KB, or Kubi, Velvet Snake. This is the DLC version. There's also a plain Jane version. I'll let you guys know the price on the KB site is substantially higher than what these actually ended up selling for on sites like White Mountain Knives. You know, if you go to the KB Knives website, it's probably going to cause a little bit of a freak out. But no, they didn't actually, not on the regular retail sites, it didn't actually sell for that much. Actually, the price tags ended up being pretty impressive. This knife, honestly, also ended up being pretty impressive. I was initially, when I unboxed this, confused by a few different things, but that all got cleared up pretty quickly. And using it was, yeah, it was honestly a very positive experience. So I'm going to share all the details of that with you guys here in this video. Thanks to KB Knives for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram, etc. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Overall length of the Velvet Snake coming in at, surprisingly, not even 8 inches. It really feels like it carries and feels and looks like an 8-inch knife. 7.75. Blade length, 3.35. Cutting edge, about 3.25. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. So up against the 80-10 and 80-20.5. Longer than the 20.5, but much closer in size to the 20.5 versus the 80-10. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3, which is... oh, it's over here today. Sorry about that. Kind of right in the middle. It's got more cutting edge than both, I believe. Yeah, slightly more even than the, excuse me, the PM2. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca, which is probably closest to in handle profile, blade length. It's just a thicker object because, thicker and heavier because of the contouring and the titanium, right? How's the action on this knife? You can deploy it in a couple different ways, but I want to point out that the action, like the pivot action, is actually very, very nice. Thumb stud action, super snappy. And you can also do the, if you really get over there, you can do a top flip. I think it's actually easier to front flip it. This angle right here, I really thought it's like a buzz cut versus a unicorn horn. I thought, no way, that's not going to work. I really need the horn. Actually, better. The combination, the detent strength, the jimping here, and the angle. Not only does this look better, like front flipper knives, it just drives me nuts. This big, stupid horn coming off the top of it. This is pretty nice. I like this. It works, right, for people, for if you want to use it, or if you don't want to use it, you just ignore it, right? Access to the thumb stud's pretty good. I wish the thumb studs were slightly wider and more domed off, but honestly, they're great. Access to the lock bar is also very good. Pivot action, nice and smooth. It's also a sub frame lock, which means you don't have to fight to find the perfect position for your fingers because it's pretty much naturally going to fall on this camo carbon instead of falling on the lock bar and causing excuse me, deployment issues. So yeah, honestly, the action's great. Let's do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's about the same, but this is all contoured. Feels really good. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is a super easy knife to carry. A little bit heavier than, you know, knives like the PM2 and Para 3, but it's just because of the materials. But not much. It's honestly, I mean, it's such a classic knife profile. It's not super tall this way, right? It's not even super long. It's only slightly longer closed up than the Spyderco Para 3. So yeah, great. My experience with it was really good. Weight. What are we looking at for materials? We're looking at DLC titanium. We're looking at camo carbon, like 80s camo carbon. Some people like, some people don't. I think it's kind of neat, right? Apparently this, I don't have a UV flashlight, but apparently it glows under UV flashlight, which wouldn't surprise me in all these neon colors. And then we have a DLC M390 blade, which I intentionally did not clean off. I used it a whole bunch. I would imagine that will come off pretty easily, even if this was just PVD. I trust that Kubi's using a real DLC, right? We're gonna put that to the test here in just a second. But if this was PVD or Cerakote, like just the basic stuff that I put it through, like that stuff doesn't hold up very well at all. So I imagine this will clean off really easily. What I'm curious about is if it stands up to being scratched by a bit, right? So I'm sure I can leave some marks here, but I want to make sure that I can actually clean this off. That didn't actually seem to do anything. I think this is legitimately DLC. We're just going to put a little bit of... I didn't do anything crazy with this knife. I cut some box. I just did normal stuff. I just didn't clean it because I wanted to make sure that, you know, when the time came to do the video that I could clean it off with something like break-free CLP, which I am certain that I can, right? Outside of some tape residue that might not come off. I would venture to guess that this is legitimately DLC. It's not quite a satin DLC. This is definitely the case. Everything came off the blade. Yeah, there's no hint of scratch or anything like that. CJRB getting a free advertisement. Looks pretty good. The little lines there are actually from, it's probably lines from cutting that box, but any scratches that might have been there from the bit are not there. So this is kind of in between like the satin DLC that you'd see on a Kunmu knife and the chalky DLC that you'd see on Spyderco knives. It does slow down a bit versus, you know, like a totally satin blade, right? It just feels like there's a little more friction on it, but not bad at all. So yeah, that's cool. That's nice to know that that's legitimately DLC. Not that I wouldn't expect a company like Kubi to be like, yeah, it's DLC, and then it turns out not to be, right? But it looks like coated, you know, the titanium frame, the pocket clip, everything. So, but anyways, we have the camo carbon, we have the DLC titanium, we have a DLC M390 blade, which is listed as 60 to 62 HRC, even on the coated one. So if that's actually the case, this blade did not fatigue at all cutting cardboard. I don't have the, you know, the right type of testing equipment to know for sure. But if you guys are actually making sure that even your DLC blades, which typically drop a point because of the DLC, I guess, I'm not an expert on this, typically they drop a point. So that's cool if you guys are actually getting it to 60 to 62 HRC. But yeah, all great stuff, contoured, right? Let's weigh it. The weight on the Velvet Snake, which is very dramatic. It makes sense, right? It sounds like something that came from the 80s. 3.4 ounces, not bad at all considering the blade length. Almost a perfect ratios. The balance on this knife also very good, right behind the pivot. Yeah, very nice. Let's measure the blade stock thickness and get into the meat and potatoes. It's pretty straightforward here. Your blade stock thickness is coming in at 121 thousandths, so pretty good. All right. So this was a pretty basic, straightforward care experience. I mean, I've seen this profile a million times, and the reason we see it a million times is because it works, right? It's just a classic knife profile. Nice little swells in here, just allowing for ergonomic comfort and lock-in. Edges are knocked down a little bit. Probably could be knocked down a little bit more, is what I was trying to say there. The back edges, same thing, but it's fine. Honestly, ergonomically, this felt really good. Nice functional jimping that has a little notch right here. I like that. You can choke up a bit behind the edge. I feel a little safer back here. Sharpening choil, I'll let you guys take a look at that plunge grind. If you're gonna be sharpening a lot, if you're gonna dedicate to this knife and this knife only, or this knife and just a couple other knives, you're gonna use it so much you're gonna be sharpening all the time, then this area is gonna be a lot more important to you than to people like me who have a bajillion knives or just a lot of knives and use them very, very casually and don't sharpen a lot, right? So you kind of have to ask yourself what kind of person you are. The aesthetic of this is really nice, and I like that they put the KB logo on the pivot and not on the blade. A bunch of white text on a DLC blade just looks stupid. Microtech. Sorry. But this over here I think is okay, right? We have the designer logo, and then we have very, very tiny over here M390. Would have been cool to see this in S90 view, but I'm happy with the M390, especially with the price tag. I think the 80s camo carbon looks cool. It's a little bit on just one side. I gotta point this out. Transition from titanium to carbon fiber. Down here, it's fine. Up here, there's just a little bit of a lip. You can probably see it sticking up just a bit, and I doubt they're all like this, but I gotta point it out. You know, that was kind of, almost, everything else about this knife, the fit and finish was all perfect except for that one area right there. And it's really highlighted, not just because you can touch it, but because we have the very bright 80s camo carbon transitioning to DLC titanium, right? But outside of that, fit and finish great. Cutting bevel was fine. This has a flat that only carries out to maybe 45% the length of the blade. Long swedge, nice tip, continuous belly. This works. It was a comfortable, convenient, familiar carry experience with having a front flipper for when I felt fidgety. That was a lot of that. Sorry about that. Couple of screws that hold in the camo carbon. You almost can't even see them. They're completely camouflaged, which is cool. Then we have a little lanyard bar back here. No lefty mounting position for the pocket clip. Pretty tight. I think that it was a little bit pinchy, right, in and out of the pocket, and pretty tight there. I would have preferred a little bit more of a swoop, right, which is something that I'm learning and trying to correct with my own design. So it feels weird to criticize this, but I am aware of what causes this. But fortunately, we have a nice smooth surface for this to ride in and out of the pocket on. So, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. You have a steel lock bar insert, which doubles as the over travel stop. Kind of pointless because the scale itself does it, but that's nice, right? You have a stop pin located in its traditional spot. Very deep shouldering. No blade plate up, down, left, to right. No lock stick. Nope, I'm wrong. There is pivot lash, just a little bit. What is pivot lash? It's when the hole in the blade is cut to be just slightly not absolutely perfect versus the pivot barrel that goes through it. So when you disengage the lock and you move the blade up and down, you can feel click, 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 just the tiniest little bit. Does this affect the functionality of the knife at all? No. It's something that I personally check for just to see if all of the tolerances are absolute, right? So it's annoying to a nitpicky knife reviewer, but it has no bearing on the knife's function. I didn't even know that was the case until just now. But for people who are like me and that bothers them, I will point it out for you. If you have never heard of this term before, I can tell you, it's going to be fine. This knife will be fine, right? But it can be annoying, and now I've given you something else to be bothered by that you didn't know you could be bothered by. Very smooth action. D10 is clicky. It's probably about medium D10 as it should be with a thumb stud opener. I don't think this can... Yeah, it stayed perfectly centered this entire time, so that's nice. And no D10 lash. So initially when I unboxed this, I looked on the website and I was like, oh my God, this is so expensive. Actually, when it made it to White Mountain Knives, the base price, the non-DLC version, came in at $224. The DLC version came in at $280. I'm not mad about that. That's about where it should be, especially considering contoured. We got some specialty carbon fiber, and we have titanium. We have M390 properly heat-treated titanium backspacer, titanium clip. I'm not really upset about that. A lot of the KB stuff seems to be priced like some guy was like, how about we just charge $100 more than we should, or not that much, like 50 to 75 more than we should. And they're just like, sure, it's just bizarre. It makes no sense to me, especially when you have like immediate and identical competition in other brands, and sometimes within the Kubi brand, just costing less for essentially the same thing. So it doesn't always make sense to me. This is pretty well priced. $224 for the entry price if you don't care about the DLC. Yeah. $280 with the DLC, maybe a little high, maybe a little bit. I think they're getting a little bit rowdy, charging that much for just because it's DLC. But they did do the whole frame, so I don't know. I don't know what price. Maybe, if it came in at like $260, I'd have been like, all right, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm not going to cry about $280. Pretty good. Honestly, my experience with this, outside of the little goof up here, which might not be the case with all of them, I was pretty impressed with this. It's definitely DLC, unless I have fake bits. But yeah, I like this. I haven't been excited about a Kubi or a KB knife in a long time. Right? Not that they don't make good knives. It's just nothing. I've just never been, I haven't been super impressed with their pricing or any of their designs lately. But this is cool. I like this. Generally speaking, this is going to be a recommendable knife, so I'm going to put it in the recommended knives playlist. That's going to be it from me today, guys. Thanks again from Kubi. This will end up as a giveaway knife on one of my live streams, which, by the way, are usually Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So hop in if you want to win a knife, because I get a lot of free stuff. Please take my stuff. I give away the vast majority of the stuff that comes in. So please come hang out with us and have a good time. And you know, hey, you might win a knife or 2 or 10. Sometimes I give away 10 at a time. Anyways, please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. If you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.